Hello everyone, it's Trent, and in honor of all the Spider-Man related productions we're set to get this winter, from No Way Home to Freshman Year to Marvel Spider-Man 2, or even some fan-made productions like Spider-Man Lotus and the fan revival of the new animated series, I figured why not go back in time and see where it all began with Spider-Man, to the 2002 video game adaptation based on the first movie, to be precise.
Oh boy, do I have memories of this bad boy. Both the film and the game were a huge part of my childhood and helped curate my fascination with the wall crawler for years to come. Spider-Man and his rogues gallery have continued to remain my favorite comic book characters of all time, thanks to the webhead's relatability and down-on-his-luck personality, with some of my favorite adaptations being several different animated series, games, and of course, the holy trilogy that is the Sam Raimi movies. Though Spider-Man 2 and 3 are more fondly remembered as being full of meme potential,
Pizza time.
my personal favorite of the trilogy will forever remain the first film. Yes, I know it's super dated and it's like really cheesiness of the early 2000s, but the memorable performances from Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, Cliff Robertson, Rosemary Harris, and Kirsten Dunst, they're all on display for you to enjoy. There was an awesome trailer that featured the Twin Towers that sadly had to be pulled from the air due to the tragedy that befell it. There was the fact that the climax of the movie nearly perfectly recreates the comic book storyline turning point, and of course, they had some of the best costumes for these characters that 2-year-old me loved. Spider-Man is a movie I still go back and watch for pure nostalgia and quotability alone.
This game, on the other hand, well, it's a bit of a can of worms to crack open, so let's get into it, shall we?
Well, would you look at that? Snazzy to say the least. This cutscene is ingrained in my memory for how many times I saw it as a child. It's just a shame that the adventure that follows it is, well, less than memorable.
Yeah, cards on the table here. This game's pretty lackluster, even by my standards. I went back and played this with a lot of nostalgia and fuzzy memories in my mind, but with that said, how about we just take the ultimate spin and play some Spider-Man, the movie? And yes, that is what it's actually called.
Upon starting the game, you're given the option of either jumping straight into the story or going through an optional tutorial sequence that'll give you a rundown on your powers and abilities. You could just jump into it, but I decided to go with the tutorial. And trust me, you're going to want to do this because of the voice talent on display here.
Greetings. Welcome to the tutorial. Yeah, I know, you want to get on with things, beat up the bad guys, do the whole superhero thing, blah, blah, blah. Well, everyone's got
Yep, the king of B-horror, the master of the boomstick, the one who's simply groovy. Bruce Campbell, baby. Bruce is one of my favorite underrated actors of all time, and I'm so glad that, thanks to his friendship with Sam Raimi, he was able to make a cameo in all 3 Spider-Man movies, as well as lend his snarky remarks to this video game. Considering the tutorial is optional, you could miss out on hearing him at all, but don't worry, he does pop up a few times throughout the rest of the game to provide narration or explanation. Nearly 19 years later, his performance still holds up, and I honestly think all of his lines are gold.
Well, good to see that you can follow basic instructions. You are the little red dot, and your target is blue, so now's your chance to self-test for color blindness. Okay, the topic at hand is web swinging. But let's get one thing straight first. Do not try this at home, okay? Your house isn't nearly tall enough.
Is it an omen of things to come that this is the best part of the game?
While we're on the subject of voice acting, let's discuss the other celebrities who lend their talent to this game. Tobey Maguire and the GOAT himself, Willem Dafoe. I have no complaints about Dafoe. Dude is always great to listen to. He puts his heart and soul into everything he performs in, and it's no different here. Tobey, on the other hand, no. I know he's no Clint Eastwood or Tom Cruise, but come on, man, he's at least a decent actor. Here, it's pretty obvious he was doing this for a paycheck. Flat delivery, almost no emotion, and the jokes leave a lot to be desired. As for the rest of the cast, they're fine, I guess. Either the performances are forgettable, or so bad it's good, like the generic thugs you'll find in most levels.
Circus in town?
Okay, that's the tutorial out of the way. How does this puppy start?
With Uncle Ben dying. First movie in the series, the first game to really explore the origin. I get it. But that doesn't give you an excuse to stretch it out for 3 levels, guys. 3 levels! I could have found Uncle Ben's killer in the time it took to beat the first stage. It would have been easier if the controls weren't so rough around the edges, too. For whatever reason, Spidey has tank controls in this game. Tank controls. For an acrobatic man in long tights. The controls fight with the camera, where it almost becomes a hindrance if you're trying to attack somebody you're not locked onto, so thank God for the targeting system. I can't even tell you how many times I got turned around because I started walking in one direction, only to keep walking in said direction despite changing the camera angle just to get around a corner.
But you know what's worse than tank controls? Half-baked stealth mechanics.
At the start of the second level, in which you're still chasing Uncle Ben's killer, Brucey Boy informs us that the street rats won't see you if you hide in heavily shadowed areas. But here's the thing. There's pretty much no way to divide and conquer any of these bozos. As soon as you drop down or attack anybody, even if you're not in sight of anyone else, the entire room will immediately be alerted of your presence and run up on you. It's important to mention this now for a mission I'm going to be bringing up later. At least from all this calamity, we finally tracked down the killer after two warehouse levels! Why couldn't this be one combined stage?
Oh yeah, and his boss fight sucks too.
I mean, this guy's even dumber than how he was in the movie. He just runs around, blindly shoots at Spider-Man, and randomly throws flashbangs that don't really disorient you as much as they annoy you. All the while running around like an idiot and never putting two and two together that some guy with a big red spider on his shirt can stick to walls or anything like that. And then he just falls out of a window. Awkwardly.
I mean, at least in the film he trips over a lead pipe, but here, this is just next level stupidity.
After briefly mourning his uncle's death and mentioning MJ and Harry in passing, we cut to Norman Osborn, whose company is losing money, so much so that he wants to capture Spider-Man to run tests on him to steal his powers. Hey, wait a second.
Last I checked, Peter had just gotten revenge on the man that killed Uncle Ben. How does he know Harry or Mary Jane, or how does he get his powers before Norman Osborn becomes the Green Goblin, when in the movie they get their powers at the same time? And you know what, I'm probably the only person that cares about that kind of thing.
After dispatching of some generic Oscorp robots literally just called Hunter Killers, quite generic name there, guys, we finally get something interesting in the next level, as we find out that Shocker and the Vulture, two villains who weren't in the original film but are a welcome addition to the game nonetheless, have just robbed a jewelry store, and it's up for us to stop them by first going after old Shocky Boy.
Hey, if you thought my nickname sucked, just listen to what Bully McGuire comes up with here.
So you must be Quilt Man, Padded Pete, Mr. Triple Ply? Oh, I've got it. The cushion.
To be fair, the Grand Central Station mission isn't too bad. It has a certain feel to it and a spectacle that perfectly captures a well-known NYC landmark. Though there are security guards who can hold their own against some of Shocker's henchmen, it loses points for having the dumbest NPC known to man.
What you done that, huh? Tell me about it.
By the way, honey, in addition to apparently owning the loudest cell phone known to man, by any chance did you take out that extra life insurance policy? I have a feeling something awful will happen to me in the next 2 minutes should there not be a man in spandex to come to my rescue.
Okay, what's next?
Looks like the welcome wagon's already here.
Oh, come on! A sewer level?
Complete with twisting corridors, buttloads of enemies, and hallways that ended up nowhere? Oh, you shouldn't have. No, really, you shouldn't have. If you think I sound extra critical here, it's because we're coming up on what I think are two of the most pinpointingly accurate and excruciating moments in the entire game. To get the Shocker, you have to web zip between pillars while he puts his gauntlets on overdrive to try and kill you. Oh, by the way, they're unavoidable! Unless you are perfectly behind a column, these shockwaves will take a third of your health away in one hit. Get shot while zipping between points? Dead. Somehow end up on the ceiling? Dead. Have a singular pixel not behind cover? Dead, 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 dead! You barely have a second to breathe in between blasts, because Shocker doesn't have a cooldown time. He immediately hops between lanes to shoot you, and causes you to strangle yourself with the GameCube remote out of frustration. After all that misery, Shocker acts like a and runs off, yet again.
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
At least there's a few health and web pickups to replenish yourself afterwards. Oh yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. This game has a web fluid meter. In spite of this version of Peter being able to produce his own organic webbing, it makes me wonder, is this a leftover from a very early version of the game where Peter originally had web shooters like in early versions of Sam Raimi's script? Probably not. The developers just wanted you to suffer. Lucky for me, I activated the infinite webbing code before I started the game. You might call that cheating, but I call it making this game a little more accurate to the film.
At least we finally catch up to Shocker, and we get to move on to some better levels. From a certain perspective, I guess.
Outside of the stages tied to the film's plot, Vulture's levels really stand out and make the game for me. You start by climbing a clock tower that eventually catches fire, before chasing the bird brain out to the city where you have to save some citizens on the fly, culminating in a climactic battle atop the Chrysler building while a thunderstorm halts your attempts to get closer to the villainous geriatric.
Now that is cool. It's so cool, in fact, that there are storyboards that exist of the canceled Spider-Man 4 movie, where Spider-Man and Vulture's final fight would have taken inspiration from this level. How cool is that? It's awesome, right? However, just as the game builds some goodwill, everything goes back to mediocrity with the next level.
In a couple of levels that come out of nowhere and have no bearing on the plot compared to the Shocker and Vulture stuff, Oscorp traps the Scorpion in a parking garage due to having similar DNA as Spider-Man. Where did Scorpion come from? Why is he wearing his ugly 90s costume instead of his classic green one? What's his origin in this game? Boy, would I love to know. It's implied that Scorpion is some sort of paranoid schizophrenic who was a failed creation of a government lab, and now he's on the run. Makes sense to me, I guess. As much sense as seeing a 7-foot man in a giant robotic Scorpion suit does. We help Scorpion fight off some Oscorp robots, but he still decides to betray us and try to kill our hero. Go figure.
On the bright side, though, his levels take place at Grand Central Station again, except this time it takes place at night and everything's under construction, so it's a bit of a different vibe, which I appreciate.
Outside of saying that Grand Central Station is still under construction after the whole Shocker incident earlier in the game, which is pretty neat, Scorpion's boss fight is pretty easy, as long as you keep him off the walls, that is. I would like to know more, but unfortunately Scorpion runs off like a cartoon character after he gets defeated, so... oh well, on to the Green Goblin, I guess.
This review's getting pretty long as is, so since the last couple levels are just based on the actual movie, I'm just going to do a quick lightning round summary of everything that happens afterward. Here we go.
Goblin invades the Oscorp Unity Day Festival, killing Manny while also putting Mary Jane in harm's way by stranding her on a parade balloon. Spidey swoops in and saves her before chasing Goblin around the city, where he tries, badly I might add, to recruit Spider-Man into his cause.
You misguided fool. I've offered you the world and you've thrown it away. Well, I'll cure you of your deluded ideals soon enough.
Gobby does what any good Spider-Man villain does whenever the developers get writer's block, and plants bombs throughout the city, forcing Spider-Man to swing around downtown blindly while spotlights, robots, and other things get in your way of disabling the explosives, pretty much giving you a 1 to 2 second crutch in order to turn them off. Seems fair. Goblin returns with some razor bats, which, let's be honest, aren't as cool as how they looked in the movie, and rather than fight his mortal enemy, Spider-Man pulls a Shocker and runs away like a wuss. Aha! Didn't curse this time. Sorry. What a hero! Finding some debris the Goblin left behind, he discovers that Oscorp is at the very least making his weapons, so he decides to break in and find out why. Lightning round over.
This level. Do you remember when I told you there is one of 2 different excruciatingly difficult segments in this game? This is another one. Do you also remember when I told you about the half-baked stealth mechanics that are in this game? In this level, you have to sneak around Oscorp and collect 4 different pieces of a security code in order to move on. Keep in mind that you are constantly at the beck and call of the fact that the stealth may or may not work. And you can often bump into security guards that take 1 too many hits to knock out, and it's pretty much pointless to try and do so. And what exactly is their backup? Oh yeah, multiple killer robots that lock onto you and shred your butthole with super lasers! May I remind you that the stealth pretty much does not work in this game.
And it doesn't stop there. Despite breaking in specifically just to get the drop on the Goblin, Spider-Man overhears a scientist and decides to help him shut down the company's nuclear weapons division because, according to him...
Chemical weapons? That's a definite no-no.
Look, I'm not one for chemical warfare and everything, and yeah, Spider-Man is a hero.
But if Oscorp wants to manufacture nuclear weapons... 1. It is not within Spider-Man's right to shut down the project. He's the one breaking and entering and committing industrial espionage in a billion-dollar company. 2. Doing so will put hundreds, maybe even thousands of people out of a job since all of their research will be back down the drain. 3. Oscorp is a weapons development company, and one of the main plot points in the film is that they are trying to hold on to their deal with the military. If Spidey shuts the project down, Oscorp will go bankrupt because of lost finances on this endeavor, as well as potentially losing their lucrative military contract. In short, Spider-Man is a horrible person! Just like Superman in Quest for Peace, just because nuclear weapons exist does not give him the right to destroy said weapons because they pose a potential threat to the world. He should consider the livelihoods of the peoples he's putting at stake every time he shuts one of their projects down.
Sorry there, I got off on a tangent. Trust me, I'm over it now. I didn't even mention the superfluous amount of lasers and motion detectors that are in that level alone, but you know what? I'm over it. Alright, where are we now?
Holy, that thing's bigger than Long Island and it doesn't look too friendly. The sensor array has a shield around it. I'll have to take out the shield generators first.
If you thought the Goblin planting bombs everywhere was run-of-the-mill, just wait till you get a load of this guy. A giant robot! I'm sorry. I'm playing Spider-Man, right? When did this become Gears of War? Why does this game do such a piss-poor job of getting sidetracked? We spent 3 levels trying to find Uncle Ben's killer, 3 to take out Shocker, 3 to take out Vulture, 2 to take out Scorpion, and now we're up to 5. 5 levels trying to take out the Goblin! And 2 of those levels had Spider-Man get distracted with putting tons of scientists out of a job in conjunction with running into a robot that comes spontaneously out of nowhere!
Whatever, fine, beat him, gone, done, he's dead! Alright, just please tell me he's found what he's looking for.
Oh my gosh, finally! Back to the plot! It's about time. Of course they wouldn't make it easy on you, since the next level is you breaking out of Oscorp. Except everyone knows you're there now, so there's no need to stealth because of all these killer robots that will chase after you anyways while you scramble around, trying to find the right doorway out while also trying to disable literal laser walls. After all that frustration, you have a chase scene with the Goblin who, gasp, has kidnapped MJ, leading to the final battle on the Queensboro Bridge. Not much to say here other than get to work quickly and save MJ first, or else this might happen to you.
Smoked ya! You failed to save Michael Jordan.
Anywho, Goblin shows his true identity, gets hit by his own glider and dies, while MJ shares a fully masked kiss with Spider-Man as they stand over Norman's body. I guess death really turns her on. Anywho, Spidey tells us to go outside and play as the credits finally roll.
Looks like you're done now. Go outside and play.
Thank God.
What else is left to say other than the fact that this game is way too long and hasn't aged very well? Clunky controls and mechanics, overbearing combat sequences, and poorly paced levels. Our main protagonist sounds bored throughout. I mean, is there any merit to go back and play this game at all today? Well, if you're a fan of Bruce Campbell or Willem Dafoe, maybe you'll get a kick out of their performances. Not to mention there are lots of cheat codes and unlockables to enjoy throughout, such as being able to play as Mary Jane, the Shocker, Uncle Ben's killer, a police officer, or even the Green Goblin himself. There's also the option to play with Alex Ross's prototype black and red Spider-Man suit that he designed for the first movie, but went unused. And of course, there's Pinhead Bowling. Enough said. Other than that, yeah, there are many other Spider-Man titles that you might get more enjoyment out of than this.
That was abysmal. But thankfully, at least we have plenty of other great Spider-Man projects coming on the horizon. And as a huge Spider-Man fan myself, I am looking forward to what they do next with the character. Especially with how No Way Home ended up being and how it ended up ending. It's, got a lot of potential going forward. But until next time, that was Spider-Man the movie. I've been RegularTrent. Take care and spike your hair. I'll see ya.